Story number 1. The Shadow Visitor. When I was 11, my mom and I moved to a quiet, wooded town in Oregon after her divorce. We didn't know anyone, except for her co-worker Sarah, who had 2 kids. Sarah often worked night shifts at the local elder care center, so my mom volunteered me to hang out with her daughter Ivy whenever she worked late. One icy December evening, Ivy, her 8-year-old brother Theo, and I were home alone, playing games and eating popcorn. Ivy's mom always knocked in a specific rhythm: tap tap, pause, tap tap tap. So when we heard the familiar knock at 9 p.m., Ivy ran to unlock the door without a second thought, but it wasn't her mom. A woman stood barefoot in a thin hospital gown, her skin pale and cracked from the cold. She whispered, "Is Sarah home?" Ivy froze. The woman pushed the door open slowly. Terrified, I grabbed Theo and ran out the back door to the neighbor's house. Ivy stayed behind. I still don't know why. The police arrived 12 minutes later. Ivy was gone. They found her body in the bathtub, her head missing, her skin scraped and carved like a ritual. In the Christmas presents beneath the tree, they found the head, wrapped in silver foil like an ornament. The woman? She was Sarah's estranged sister. Recently released from a psychiatric facility, she'd found out where Sarah lived by tricking her during casual chats at work. She'd been watching the house for days. Ivy's funeral happened a week before Christmas. I wasn't allowed to go, but I still hear that knock sometimes. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. And when I do, I don't answer the door. I hide. Story number 2, Granny Grimm's Last Walk. It was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday evening in the sleepy town of Elms Ridge, the kind of place where folks still wave at each other, and old ladies walk home from the library without worry. Evelyn Granny Grimm Granger, 78 years old and barely 5 feet tall, was well known around town. Always polite, always carrying a tote bag full of mystery novels. What people didn't know. She also carried a custom pearl-handled revolver inside that same bag, a gift from her late husband, a retired sheriff. That night, Evelyn left the library just before 8 p.m. A dense fog had rolled in, swallowing the streetlights and turning the roads into eerie tunnels of silence. Halfway down Maple Avenue, she noticed a figure trailing her. Slow at first, then quicker. She tightened her grip on her bag. The man caught up near the old church steps, grabbing her shoulder and growling, "Give me the bag, old witch." She calmly turned around and looked him in the eyes. "You picked the wrong ghost to haunt, son." She drew the revolver and fired once. The shot echoed through the fog. The man dropped instantly, a dark patch spreading through his hoodie. But the horror wasn't over. When police arrived, they found his ID, Nolan Bishop, a 35-year-old ex-con who had been released just 2 weeks earlier, after serving 10 years for a string of violent home invasions. But that wasn't the scary part. His backpack included zip ties, duct tape, and a serrated hunting knife. He wasn't planning to rob her. He was planning something far worse. Nolan died later that night from internal bleeding. Evelyn was never charged. Her concealed carry was legal, and the shooting was ruled self-defense. Still, every so often, locals say they see an old woman walking past the church, revolver glinting under the moonlight, followed by faint footsteps behind her, then a scream that vanishes into the fog, and no one dares follow her. Not anymore. Story number 3. The Van That Watches. 16-year-old Lila Marin lived in a quiet mountain town called Alder Pines, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and nothing ever really happened. Until one winter evening changed everything. It began subtly. A black van with no markings and fully blacked out windows started showing up at the end of her street, always parked. Engine running, headlights off. Lila noticed it first while walking home from school, then again while jogging in the park. And once, late at night, it idled across from her bedroom window, just far enough to stay out of reach. At first, she thought she was imagining things, but it kept happening. The same van, the same silent presence. Her father, Mark Marin, was the town's deputy sheriff. When she told him, he chalked it up to nerves. But then he saw it for himself, lurking behind the trees outside the school parking lot. When he turned to confront it, the van peeled off so fast it almost clipped a mailbox. The next night, it returned. Mark was ready. He jumped in his cruiser and chased it down the frost-covered roads. But no matter how fast he went, the van stayed just out of reach, like it knew every turn before he made it. It finally vanished into a tunnel, leaving only the smell of burnt rubber behind. The only detail Mark caught? The license plate was wrapped in silver duct tape, and carved into the back bumper was a word that chilled him. Watcher. Local police searched for weeks. No leads, no prints, no footage. just cold tire tracks and a growing sense of dread. Lila's family eventually moved out of Alder Pines, but stories still spread. 3 months later, a different teen in a nearby town reported the same van, same duct-taped plate, same eerie silence. The girl's name? Ellie Marin, Lila's cousin. No one knows what the Watcher wants, but once it finds you, it never forgets your face. Story number 4. He was living in the walls. 10-year-old Ava Torres and her mother, Elena, had just moved into a cheap 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Phoenix. It was older, creaky, and had a weird smell that lingered no matter how much they cleaned. But rent was cheap, and they needed a fresh start after a rough divorce. One night around 2:30 a.m., Ava woke up to the soft creak of her bedroom door. Still half asleep, she rubbed her eyes and saw the shadowy outline of a man, tall, thin, barefoot, slipping silently out of her room and vanishing down the hallway. She screamed. Elena came running. They searched the apartment. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. The windows were locked. The front door? Still bolted from the inside. Trying to calm her daughter, Elena chalked it up to a nightmare, until 2 days later, when she went to put away winter clothes in the hall closet. Behind a false wall panel near the back, she discovered something that turned her blood cold. A nest, blankets, a duffel bag, empty food wrappers, and worse, a small notebook filled with disturbing scribbles and crude drawings of Ava, pages dated weeks before they'd moved in. One entry read, "She sleeps facing the window, sometimes talks in her sleep. I think she knows." The police found fingerprints, but no match. Whoever it was had been living in the apartment, possibly inside the walls, for months, entering the rooms only when they slept. The landlord admitted that the unit had been vacant for nearly a year, but neighbors whispered otherwise. They'd heard footsteps at night, scratching, breathing. Elena and Ava left the next day. But the closet? It's still there, and so is the panel. Story number 5. The Cackle beneath the floorboards. In the remote Appalachian town of Ravensbrook, 22-year-old college dropout Ethan Harper returned to his late grandmother's crumbling farmhouse to settle the estate. The place had been abandoned for years, surrounded by dense woods and whispered rumors. Locals spoke of the Hollow Witch, but Ethan dismissed it all as backwoods superstition. On his second night there, the power flickered. A single light bulb hanging in the basement suddenly burst with a loud pop, plunging the space into pitch blackness. Ethan, holding a flashlight, descended the narrow wooden steps to investigate. The air grew heavier the deeper he went, thick with mildew and something metallic. As he reached the bottom, the flashlight sputtered, then died. Total darkness. Then he heard it. A clicking noise behind him, like long fingernails tapping wood. He spun around, heart hammering in his chest. Silence. He took a step forward, and that's when it happened. A low, guttural cackle echoed from behind him. Deep, feminine, raspy, like a voice dragged from the bottom of a grave. Then he felt something brush against his neck, cold and wiry, like brittle hair or spider legs. Ethan bolted, tripped on the stairs, crawled up them in blind panic, tearing his palms on splinters. The basement door slammed behind him, on its own. He didn't stop to pack. He left everything, keys, phone, his grandmother's ashes. When he returned weeks later with police, the basement was empty, except for claw marks on the walls and a burned-out circle of black candles in the corner. No one could explain it. But sometimes, in the dead of night, hikers near Ravensbrook claim they hear laughter carried on the wind, not joyful, not human. A laugh that sounds like it belongs 6 feet underground. Story number 6. The Sleeper Below. Lena was a 21-year-old exchange student from Sweden, renting a room in a quaint old brownstone in Charleston, South Carolina. Her host, a seemingly kind literature professor named Miss Randall, had offered her a mattress on the floor of her cozy, antique-filled guest room, while the second bedroom was being renovated. For weeks, everything seemed normal, if a bit too quiet. Miss Randall rarely left her study, often heard muttering to herself late at night. Lena brushed it off as harmless eccentricity, but strange things began happening. Her shampoo kept vanishing, and her charger would be in a different outlet than where she'd left it. She once woke up to find her backpack unzipped and half emptied. The professor blamed the old house playing tricks, but Lena couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. One chilly October night, a storm knocked the power out. Lena lay wide awake, wrapped in a blanket on the floor, flashlight flickering on the nightstand. A distant creak echoed from the hallway, then silence. As she rolled over to face the bed, the beam from her dying flashlight accidentally lit up something underneath it. Eyes. Wide, unblinking, staring directly at her. Frozen in fear, Lena barely managed to stifle a scream. She locked eyes with the man lying motionless beneath the bed, as if waiting. His face was pale, smeared with grime, and disturbingly calm, like he'd been there for a long time. She bolted out of the room and ran to a neighbor's house to call the police. What they found chilled even the officers. The man, Emmett Niles, had been living under the bed for over 2 months. He'd crafted a makeshift bedding area using her old clothes, and hidden food wrappers and drawings of Lena were discovered in the crawl space. He'd reportedly met Miss Randall on a forum for quiet roommates and had been invited to stay there, without Lena ever knowing. Randall was never seen again. Some say she vanished through the tunnels beneath the brownstone, but Lena still dreams of those eyes and wonders how many nights he watched her sleep without her knowing. Story number 7, The Road of the Hollow Ones. It was a fog-drenched midnight when Nico Alvarez, a 32-year-old ex-Special Forces operative, was driving through the dense pine forests outside Bitterroot Ridge, Montana. He was headed home after visiting his ailing father, the roads empty, his headlights slicing through the eerie stillness like a scalpel. As he rounded a bend near mile marker 47, he slammed on the brakes. 2 cars were twisted in a wreck, one flipped, the other crumpled. Even worse, bodies lay sprawled across the asphalt. A woman in a nightgown, bloodied. A child limp in the ditch. A man slumped against a broken guardrail. It looked horrific. Too horrific. And too silent. Years of combat kicked in. Something was wrong. Nico scanned the scene. No smoke from the engines. No shattered glass was scattered. No scent of gasoline. Just fog and stillness, too still. He didn't get out. Instead, he reversed slowly, then hit the gas, swerving wide to avoid the bodies. That's when he saw it. In the rearview mirror, they moved. One by one, the corpses stood up. Their movements weren't natural. Jerky, like puppets on tangled strings. Then, from the tall grass and tree line, dozens more emerged. Figures in rags, masks, deer skulls, and cloaks stitched from animal hide. Some crawled. Some limped. Some just grinned. He floored it. As he sped off, a rock smashed his rear window, followed by the sound of maniacal laughter echoing into the forest behind him. Later, state police investigated the location. No signs of a wreck. No blood. No bodies. But several local pets and one missing person had been found skinned and arranged in strange spirals in the grass nearby. Nico now refuses to take rural roads. He claims the creatures he saw weren't just people, but something older, something inhuman, setting traps for the curious. He only speaks of it once, when drunk, repeating the same chilling words. They weren't pretending to be dead. They were waiting to see who'd stop, and who they'd keep. Story number 8, The Screaming River. 3 friends, Marcus, Leo, and Kayla, were night fishing on the banks of the Sable River in northern Maine, a remote spot known only to seasoned locals and backwoods hunters. It was pitch black, except for the soft glow of their lantern, and the occasional flicker of moonlight on the water. The air was thick with silence. No crickets, no owls, not even the rustle of trees. Then came the scream. It erupted from the opposite side of the river. Not an animal, not human. Something between. A garbled, bone-deep shriek that echoed off the hills like it was bouncing around inside their skulls. They froze. Kayla whispered, "That wasn't a fox." Marcus, trying to stay calm, said it must be a mountain lion. But Leo pointed out something terrifying. There were no large predators in the region anymore. Not for decades. Then again, another scream closer. But this time, there was a sound beneath it. Chattering, like teeth grinding or bones clicking together. The group packed quickly, adrenaline pumping. But before they could leave, the bushes behind them shook violently. A second later, the same blood-curdling shriek exploded from their side of the river, just 20 feet away. They turned their flashlights toward the sound. Nothing. Then Leo noticed something in the water. A silhouette. Pale. Crawling. Backwards. It stared at them with a head completely upside down, jaw unhinged wider than any mouth should go. Then it let out a wheezing sound, like someone laughing through broken glass. They dropped everything and ran. The next morning, when park rangers investigated the site, they found claw marks, human-sized but with 6 fingers, scratched into the trees. Kayla's backpack was torn open, and inside was something that didn't belong to any of them. A rotted child's shoe, soaking wet and covered in black moss. Locals now call that stretch of river the Screaming Bend, and warn, if you hear it scream once, you're safe. If you hear it scream twice, run. Story number 9. The Voice That Shouldn't Be There. Daniel Crest, a 27-year-old software engineer from Eugene, Oregon, had just returned home from a late-night grocery run when he realized his phone was missing. He searched his backpack, car, even the fridge, but it was gone. Annoyed but calm, he borrowed his roommate's phone and called his number. It rang, once. Then someone answered. There was no voice, just static. Then, a faint breath, long, inhuman, like someone exhaling slowly through water. "Hello?" Daniel asked, heart quickening. No reply. Only the sound of something shifting, like fabric being dragged across hardwood. He hung up, thinking maybe his phone had been picked up by someone nearby. But something didn't sit right. His roommate Mike wasn't home. He was working the night shift. Daniel lived alone that evening. So who answered the phone? From inside the house. Chills raced down his spine. He crept to the hallway, turned off the lights, and stood silently. That's when he noticed it. A dim blue glow coming from the upstairs landing. His phone, lying on the floor. He slowly approached it, hands trembling. The phone was unlocked, and the recent call log showed the call he had just made. But beneath that, there were other calls made, to unknown numbers, within the last hour. Suddenly he heard the back door creak. He darted down the stairs just in time to see the door swinging open, cold air rushing in. No one was outside. But just as he went to lock it, he saw it. A wet handprint on the glass, child-sized, with 6 fingers. He moved out the next morning. A week later, he received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a broken phone, not his, but identical. And tucked underneath was a note written in jagged handwriting. "Thanks for letting me use yours. Let's talk again soon." Story number 10. The thing in Maya's closet. 16-year-old Maya Tran had always felt safe in her quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado Springs. Her father, a retired Army Ranger, had made sure their home was secure. Cameras, alarms, reinforced locks. But none of that mattered when the threat came from inside. Over the past few weeks, Maya had been complaining about missing clothes and hearing strange creaks at night. Her father, Thomas, chalked it up to teenage imagination and creaky old pipes. That was until one Saturday morning. Maya had gone to her mom's for the weekend, and Thomas decided to deep clean her room. While organizing her closet, he noticed something odd. A faint odor like sweat and mildew. Behind a pile of shoeboxes and hanging coats was a hole, a crudely cut section of drywall that led into the crawl space. He pulled it open and found a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, and a small notebook. The entries were terrifying. Pages filled with obsessive sketches of Maya sleeping, eating, brushing her hair. Some drawings were done in charcoal, with captions like, "She glows best when the moon hits her face." "I don't like it when her dad stays up late. He ruins our time. Soon she'll see me." Horrified, Thomas called the police. They swept the house, and that night they found him. A 17-year-old boy from a few houses down, Lucas Weller. His parents thought he had run away months ago. He had been living in the crawl space for over 6 weeks, sneaking into Maya's closet at night to watch her sleep through the cracked slats of the door. When questioned, Lucas said, "She smiled at me once at school. That means she loves me, right? I just wanted to be close to her. She looks like an angel under moonlight." Lucas was taken into custody and later institutionalized. Maya never returned to that house. She still sleeps with her closet light on and a lock on the outside.